Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Art Like Everything Else, the podcast. I'm your host, Mo Lovely. So this week we're going to be talking about connection, and in a sense, community. I feel like people are lonely, and society is the only one who benefits from this, if we're being completely honest. We're encouraged to be self sufficient to our own detriment, and it's only serving the pockets of people who want to create services for us to buy instead of leaning on our own community. And I'm going to elaborate a bit more on that using our two pieces of art. The first work of art is a poem. So the poem is called Alone and it's by Maya Angelou. She's a poet, activist, and a scholar who wrote several essays, poetry books, and autobiographies. So I'm going to read the poem in full, and so here goes. Alone by Maya Angelou. Lying, thinking. Last night, how to find my soul a home, where water is not thirsty, and bread loaf is not stone. I came up with one thing, and I don't believe I'm wrong, that nobody, but nobody, can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone. Nobody, but nobody, can make it out here alone. There are some millionaires with money they can't use. Their wives run around like banshees. Their children sing the blues. They've got expensive doctors to cure their hearts of stone, but nobody, no nobody, can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone. Nobody, but nobody, can make it out here alone. Now, if you listen closely, I'll tell you what I know. Storm clouds are gathering. The wind is going to blow. The race of man is suffering, and I can hear the moan, because nobody, but nobody, can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone. Nobody, but nobody, can make it out here alone. So that concludes the poem. And I thought this poem was really relevant to the conversation I wanted to have today because it relates to what I was talking about earlier. How being alone can often be to our own detriment. And if you think about it, it's very true. There's science that details and talks about why being isolated and alone can be detrimental to our health, both physically and mentally. And even the famous anthropology story that is often floating around about how Margaret Mead said that the first proof of civilization was a healed femur. I think even though the story has been found to be more story than fact, I believe the prevalence of that story speaks to people's desire to believe that helping those around them is an innate part of who we are. And it matters because it is something that is important. And with the way things are looking and the direction in which society seems to be trying to get us to go into, is something we need to remember. And I'll tell you why with our next piece of art. Our second piece of art this week is the short film Best Friend that was directed by Nicholas Olivieri, Shen Yi, Juliana De Lucca, Varun Nair, and David Feliu. So this is a 6-minute short film that I found on YouTube a while back. And honestly, the premise of it reminds me so much of what I've started seeing. And so I wanted to talk about it. If you'd like to watch it first, I do have it linked in the description for your viewing. Because it is so short, I'm going to avoid detailing it in general for those who want to watch it themselves. But I am going to share the description of the short film and I'm going to talk about it from that angle. So the description for this short film is, in a near future, a lonely man is addicted to a product called Best Friend, which offers him perfect virtual friends. Now, does that not sound familiar to what is actually happening right now? A lot does happen in the short, so I do recommend you watch it. It's really a little under 6 minutes, but I rounded up, and it's really valuable, and I do recommend you watch it. But the short, just it reminded me just how highly addicted so many people are now to AI in general. Like being addicted to this idea of a virtual reality, of trying to create and instill and prioritize this virtual reality is so prevalent even today. like building relationships and becoming obsessed with AI models that can say nice things that you want to hear. And you can see how this very thing is being pushed. We have Muskrat who is talking about releasing robots, and then the one of the Kardashian family members was on was with the robot on a magazine. Like there's a whole spread of this woman posing with a robot, kind of trying to prime or like get people to see it as something that is okay. Meta's creating fake AI people on Instagram just for people to interact with. There are so many sites online of people creating AI versions of characters and people becoming so obsessed or like addicted to talking to these characters that there's actually already been, I know for a fact, at least one fatality where someone was talked into doing something that did not have a very good result because of this conversation with the AI. And it's just like these people want us obsessed with the product that does nothing but alienate us from those actually in our vicinity. And who does it benefit? When all of our relationships are eroded and we have no one we can turn to for help, the people who made all the things you might ask for someone for help with into gig work, or the people who create personas online for you to befriend so that they can mine your data and sell you solutions. So, yeah, we seem to be being pushed in a very specific way. And as the world burns, that way only seems to help very specific people. But Maya Angelou said, and I happen to agree, that we can't do this alone. So, how do we shift gears? What can we do to build connections with those around us? Well, I have a few ideas. I've been looking online because this conversation has been happening for a while, and I've been seeing quite a few things. So, I'm going to share a few of those things that I found that I think can help with us with not only building community and connections, but also being good community members. And so, it's going to be about 5 tips. So, first things first, we got to go outside. I know, I know, the horror. But if we want real life connections, we have to show up where? In real life. Yes, in real life. I do want to make a side note. All of these tips are in no way to discredit the beauty and fulfillment of online friendship and relationships, but those alone might not be enough. And quite frankly, I do believe some of these tips might actually be of great use in those types of relationships as well. But yeah, back to the program. We do need to go outside. We have to engage with the people actually around us. Another tip for building community and being a good community member is being inconvenienced. I think somewhere along the way, we sort of forgot that living is hard and that everything is not going to be easy. Maybe it was with all the plethora of the all these tech companies and all these people creating services that you would usually kind of ask a friend for to so that you can just go to these services instead of asking your friend. I think we need to get back to being okay with being inconvenienced because they're selling us convenience and it's eroding our relationships. Like, communities and friends weren't meant to only be for good things. You cannot expect to have a village that supports you without being supportive. Yes, moving is annoying, but if your friend or someone you consider to be a member of your community asks for your help to move, you help them move. You take them to the airport or you pick them up from the airport. You are inconvenienced. Maintaining relationships are not easy, and it shouldn't be. It's not going to only be high highs, and it is okay for that to be the case. Think to last week's podcast episode talking about we can't enjoy I don't believe we can actually enjoy how amazing things can be if we don't also recognize like some of the struggles or some of the things that the work that gets us to that place. And so our next tip for building community is don't keep score. Nowadays, it's gotten really, really common for people to keep tabs on who did what, who did this, who did that, and they're not willing to do more for this idea of fairness. And to that I say, let's be so for real. The world is not fair. Sometimes people are going to be in more need than you are at a very specific time, and they are going to need all the help they can get. There have been times where I've had friends who were hit with tragedy after tragedy after tragedy in quick succession, and they needed support through each of them. What would I have been looked like trying to keep score and being like, well, I can't help you with this one because I helped you with that one and you haven't done anything to help me? That doesn't make any sense. So it's best to just not keep score at all. Another tip for building community is believing in the goodness of the people in your community. If we're constantly afraid of being taken advantage of, if we're more likely to avoid interacting with people because we think they have ill intentions, we're more likely to isolate and avoid connection altogether. And that's pretty much how we got here in the first place. Believe that the people in your community will do right by you as you will do right by them. Of course, maintain what boundaries you need to maintain, but do believe that the people around you want you to be supported as you want to support them. And listen, if someone does try to pull one over on you, it's not your fault for believing in the good of people. It is not your fault for trusting someone to stick to their word. We are in charge of our own actions. It is not on me to make sure the other person is being honest. We can only control ourselves. So believe in the good of people. And if they mess up, they mess up, but that is not on you. And then our last tip that I'm going to share for this episode is ask for help from your community. You cannot shy away from being a part of the community now that you're here. You can't always give, but then all of a sudden, when it's your turn to need help, you keep that to yourself because you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to make things difficult, or you don't want to be difficult for other people. You are a person in this community, and you also deserve to be supported. It is not fair to yourself, and it is not fair to the community that you are a part of who want to support you. And so I'm going to be honest, this is something I'm learning and having to come to terms with too. So if it's something you struggle with, trust me, I understand. But just as you don't see the people in your community asking for help as a burden, you can't think that you would become a burden when you're in that same position. So to recap the tips that we just talked about: 1, we got to go outside. 2, we have to be okay with being inconvenienced. 3, do not keep the score. 4, we have to believe in the goodness of our community. And 5, we have to ask for help, especially when we need it. Now, if you can think of any other tips that might help people to build community or be a good community member, please drop them in the comments below. After all, we're all in this together. So yeah, maybe connecting with each other too can be an art. An art like everything else. And now last, but certainly not least, we have the awe moment. And this week, I'm going to talk about a show. So a common trope that I feel fits the theme of what we are talking about is the found family trope. And that actually happens to be one of my absolute favorite tropes in film and movie and all types of media. And so it was actually hard for me to kind of even just pick one. But I decided on the show, the Steven Universe. It's an animated show that follows Steven on all kinds of adventures. And throughout these adventures, we do see him being a community member and helping others and talking and engaging with those around him. And then we also see him ask for help, even though sometimes it's not until the last minute. But we see him actively want good for those around him and to feel a part of something bigger than he is. It's a really cute show, and it has 5 seasons, a movie, and there's like an epilogue, like mini series afterwards. And so for those who might be interested in checking it out, I highly recommend it. But yeah, it's the art that made me think this week as I was working on this episode. It's a show that means a lot to me, so it makes sense that it come to mind as I was working on this script. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you have a piece of art, whether that be book, movie, show, song, drop it in the comments and I might check it out. And who knows, it might pop up in a future episode. But yeah, follow the socials. They're on the screen and they're also in the description. And if you're only listening for the Art Like Everything Else podcast specifically, you can follow Art Like Studios on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you'd like to follow my personal accounts, it is The Lovely Infinite. So, but lovely without the vowel. So it's the word LVLY Infinite. And that's, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. That's the other one. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. Be sure to follow the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being. Keep being lovely. And have a great rest of your day. Bye.